Welcome to the AI for CRE Collective podcast. I'm here with my co-host Taylor Avakian and Tarun from Endex AI, which we're so honored and excited to have Tarun here.
I've always had a passion for working on the intersection of applied technology and finance. In high school, we spent a lot of time working with our state board on nonprofit money allocation. At the same time, I was learning how to code and felt like the tools for engineers made it really ergonomic and hard to make errors, right?
So tell us a little bit more about what Endex is.
The way to think about Endex, in my mind, is think about it as like a junior intern or analyst that lives in Excel that will start to learn your preferences and almost be an extension of you.
Welcome to the AI for CRE Collective podcast. I'm here with my co-host Taylor Avakian and Tarun from Endex AI, which for those of you that don't know, Endex is my favorite AI tool at the moment. Not that it's purpose built for real estate by any means, it's more general purpose, but it lives within Excel. We're so honored and excited to have Tarun here. Guy's 23 years old, an absolute monster. He's going to do the biggest things. Tarun, thanks for joining us, dude. So appreciative.
Really appreciate it.
Tell us about the background, man. I mean, only 23, so where'd you go to school? What are your interests, hobbies? How did you get to this point, man?
Yeah, I mean, went to Duke University for undergrad, originally from Boulder, public high school out there. I've always had a passion for working on the intersection of applied technology and finance. In high school, spent a lot of time working with our state board on nonprofit money allocation. I was drowning in Excel spreadsheets and found a bunch of clerical errors and accounting errors that were making these calculations and budget forecasts completely out of whack. I remember spending some time with some senators being like, the depreciation line items for this company just don't make sense. The COGS for a nonprofit, I don't get why they have these numbers. And effectively found out that some of these nonprofits were just faking their books and went to these nonprofits on site, and some of them just didn't exist. At the same time, I was learning how to code. You felt like the tools for engineers made it really ergonomic and hard to make errors, right? You'd have tests, you'd have type safety, a lot of things that made it more ergonomic or easier to work, where we just passed Excel's 40th birthday and the tool has felt the same. So we named the company Endex to eventually end Excel work. Ended up going to Duke on the Robertson. So Julian Robertson, who kind of founded the concept of hedge funds as a merit-based scholarship program. So wanted to go there, always felt really independent. And then when I was there, junior year, I was recruiting. One of the opportunities I had to work before was a quant firm in New York. At the same time, a bunch of my friends that I've met on a math website in 5th grade effectively had been joining this mysterious company called OpenAI. And they gave me early access to GB3. And they're like, try to build something finance. And naturally, the first thing I tried to do was solve the problem that I faced in high school as trying to reconcile these financials. Someone connected me with Peter Thiel in his family office. And at the time, he was trying to use LLMs to kind of hedge his own investments. And he had an investing strategy, was trying to hedge the Turkish lira against the acquisition of this deal, and kind of showed him the prototype we built. And he basically was like, you should drop out. And their team effectively paid for me to drop out of school, took a one-way trip to San Francisco, got connected with some of the executives at OpenAI, and they basically were like, we see this going somewhere, and they funded the company.
Wow, you're way too smart for me, bro. Way too smart. That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's crazy. So tell us a little bit more about what Endex is. Don't get too technical, but someone who's listening to this, help them envision it, walk us through it.
Totally, yeah. The way to think about Endex, in my mind, is think about it as like a junior intern or analyst that lives in Excel that will start to learn your preferences and almost be an extension of you, right? We want you to be able to multiply yourself by 10 and for everyone to be able to manage a fleet of AI analysts. An Endex is that analyst that lives in Excel today that you'll eventually be able to delegate more to like a human.
Are you guys trying to replace the analyst, or are you trying to make him better?
I think we see ourselves as multiplying the work of analysts. I think there's a lot that a human does that isn't just crunching out numbers in Excel. And I don't think you could be able to fully replace them, but I think being able to augment them is where we see it.
It's amazing. So what does the team look like? I mean, there's you. How big?
Yeah, the majority of the team out here in New York, we all work out of our office here in Soho. Majority of the team is either engineering or comes from a finance background. We have some members who come from a real estate background, some folks that come from private equity, banking, and then working at large public companies that work on a variety of different finance tools or data infrastructure.
What are some of the use cases? What are the use cases you guys Endex? What are people using it for?
Yeah, what we've noticed from our client base is each of them uses them in really unique ways. right? So we have some use cases for private equity firms and hedge funds with a lot of customers from the real estate background. I think being able to do those first pass for PDF into an initial model, being able to audit it against tax codes, do forecasts and projections, really live inside of their workflow. Like we have some users that effectively only work with Excel by prompting it. And our goal is that more people who have ideas of things to view won't have to learn how to do a summit or a sensitivity table and allow Endex to do that analysis.
So amazing. What industry are you guys thinking is going to be most affected or penetrated by a tool like this? It's okay to just say all of them. I mean, very well might be the case.
It's a really good question. Honestly, like the take is all of them, right? Like I think the last one to get impacted would probably be like quant finance, where a lot of this work doesn't exist in Excel. But for everyone else, Excel is the world's largest growing. It is the world like operating system. Every business wants on Excel in some fashion, and we see Endex as the way to power that. I think the more financial focused ones will be the first ones to get impacted: banking, private equity, commercial real estate, tax, audit. But our goal is to eventually have everything you do with Excel to be prompted and eventually be something that you can just email or text and they'll update that model for you.
Yeah, what's so great, I'm just gonna go on a little tangent here, but what's so great about a tool like Endex is it meets you where you're already working. And when you think about commercial real estate, an industry that's just lagged so much from a technological perspective, we're very stubborn in our ways. We do things a certain way. So these larger corporate real estate companies, they've built models in Excel over the last 50 years. They've iterated these models. They know them. They're so used to them. And so I think where a lot of other companies that are tackling the underwriting space within commercial real estate are making a mistake is by asking companies and firms to essentially abandon their process of doing things. And so I'm a firm believer that Excel is not going anywhere. Not anytime soon, that is. Now, I don't know if that's 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. With how fast this shit's moving, I really have no idea. It's like every second this stuff changes, so it's pretty incredible. But Excel, in my opinion, is not going anywhere. And what makes this so beautiful for commercial real estate is that it integrates within your existing workflows. You have a model, you're underwriting deals, it lives within Excel. You could utilize a tool like Endex to take your model and effectively underwrite more deals or analyze things a certain way, which you couldn't previous do. And that's what's so beautiful about this too. I'd love to get your opinion on this, Tarun, but like sometimes people have these models and they're flexible, but they're not flexible enough to analyze scenarios and data in ways that you'd like. Right. And I mean, I have some just like quick examples that come to mind, but like commercial real estate specific would be like adding ADUs, right? Accessory dwelling units to your property. Or like if you're a business, lease versus purchase. Should I buy or should I lease? And these types of scenarios, right, that ordinarily would require you to hire like an analyst or spend a bunch of time trying to build this model, but you could start analyzing data in ways that you couldn't do previously. And that's why I think it's so beautiful. What comes to mind? Like, how are you thinking about that?
Tons of great points there. One, we firmly believe in working in the places people work, right? I think that trying to make people leave Excel has been a mission of companies the last 20 years, and there's a whole graveyard of those, right? I think the tool that over the last time is Excel. I think our take on how workflows change, to your point, is number one, being able to model multiple scenarios at once, right? I think these LLMs are really good at being able to understand that workbook and think of different scenarios, right? And I think being able to do that in more ways than just a sensitivity table, but holistically, by thinking about external information, demographic trends, like prior models, preferences of your team will be an area that these models are going to get continuously better at. Now, where we think that the work is going to go is today, a human manually has to change the model in a more reactive way, right? So let's just say vacancy rates for a region change, or there's a demographic difference, or some sort of natural disaster, or the comparable rent drops for a reason, or there's a new shopping center that shows up and that impacts property value, or a political party that might feel differently about zoning laws. Today, a human has to go update all of those in Excel. Our vision is that you wake up, you look at that model, Endex has already ran those scenarios or already updated that model for you, right? And that's where I think this idea of proactive AI is going to be, I think, the defining piece of the next 2-3 years. And that will be a transformation that I think will be heavily impactful for the real estate domain, frankly, most financial domain. And we're really excited to be at the frontier of pushing that.
Yeah, well said. I'm curious with commercial real estate specifically. I think there's a big problem with data and like specifically around comps, for example, rent comps, sales comps. There's big data providers out there that are guarding their shit like crazy, right? Maybe they have API access, maybe they don't. I'm not totally sure, but how are you guys thinking about integrations with data providers where if I'm underwriting a real estate deal, I don't need to go jumping through hoops and different interfaces to find comps, rent or sales comps? What's been your experience with integration, and like what does kind of the roadmap with some of these data providers look like?
It's a great question, right? I think we want to meet users of what they are. So, for instance, we work with a lot of financial clients that want Cap IQ and FactSet data and the preferred AI partners with those. We've been working with a variety of real estate providers to bring their data live in Endex. We kind of seen two ways. One of which is that we want to integrate with the data source that people use and trust. But the second way is I think in the short term, right, it might be hard to replace them. In the long term, I think these LLMs are going to get really good at helping with that, right? If you had a web agent that could scrape LoopNet every single day, or look on Zillow, or look at vacancy rates, or do expert calls and interviews with developers, or look at previous models that you guys have built, or broker that data with other people, I think that the way that these data kind of fiefdoms in some way exist are going to drop, right? And I think there's a short term of like, how do you integrate with it? But a long term that will be really existential for these data providers of how to bring that data and make it more reliable or more easily accessible.
Tarun, I'm going to ask you more of a pointed question because I'm just curious. So there's Google Chrome extensions that make a ton of money, right? And they're fine, they're businesses. There's companies that roll these things up, and you know they're like private equity for Google Chrome extensions. Excel is almost like the Google Chrome of the financial world in terms of underwriting. And I see value in that. However, also understanding that you at this moment in time, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's more of like a plugin. It's like an application that runs on Excel. How do you defend your company, your position, for whatever reason, if Excel says, hey, you know what? We love Endex, but we just made our own, right? Thank you guys. Come again. Are you thinking about ways to try to, because you're growing a company, you wanna be defensible. What do you think the long-term vision is for Endex? Is it moving into its own spreadsheet like a Google Sheets and you guys create your own version of that? Like how do you, and I know Jake is a fan of using Excel, but how are you thinking about defending yourself?
It's a really, really good question, and something that we spent a lot of time thinking about, right? I think historically, Microsoft has been pretty neutral with these types of plugins. There's like formatting plugins like a Macavicus or like a ThinkCell for charts that has existed for a really long time, and Microsoft hasn't built. So we think really optimistically that like that scenario might not happen. However, there is a world and a real possibility it does, right? And the way that we think about it is, how do we make people's lives easier to interact with these tools and not have them change their workflows? And I think there's other places where we think that exists, right? CCing it on an email, for instance, or adding it to a Teams or Slack channel where it does these changes almost like a remote employee. Our goal is to build the world's best Excel agent tailored for professional workflows. And I think the places of where you'll interact with them might change. And we want to separate our bread and butter and our expertise of building that infrastructure to be able to pour into Google Sheets or our own spreadsheet application or Excel or wherever it needs to be, right? And that type of philosophy allows us to be flexible for how the world works. And I think the other point for that is like the only AI companies that will exist are the ones that are willing to reinvent themselves at a really fast clip. Being able to build an engineering team that can throw away everything that you built and sprint on the next thing that another model unlocks is what's going to define the category, define across. Microsoft arguably should have had the best Excel agent for the longest time. They should have built the best coding agent. They have GitHub. They have Excel. But it's hard for these organizations to move with this inertia, and we will continuously move faster and faster. And that's our vision.
What have you learned from speaking with the people at OpenAI? You're connected. You mentioned with Peter Thiel. Like, these are very smart individuals. They've built incredible companies. They've invested in incredible companies. I'm sure there's something that you've been able to take away, or lessons that other people would be very happy to hear. Like, what have you taken away from those conversations?
Great question. So we spent 8 months actually in OpenAI's offices in San Francisco before moving to New York. And I think the biggest thing that I think I've learned from all those folks is just this ability of tenacity and individual impact, right? Like the number of one-person people or that make a difference at these organizations is insane, right? Like individuals have such a high impact on that organization, even at this scale. And I think just being stellar at your craft matters a lot. And I think domain specificity and being intellectually honest, I think is important too. I think the difference between San Francisco and being in New York, I think a little bit in San Francisco, you always drink this Kool-Aid of like this vision of the world that has to exist, right? Instead of being really pragmatic. So that might be something that I actually feel like moving to New York has helped us change a little bit on that perspective. But overall, I think just written determination, like the companies that win are not the companies that have this like brilliant person who is a math dude. It's the type of person who shows up every single day and takes a bunch of shit and just keeps going, right? And like, I think that level of great perseverance, of the amount of near-death experiences for a company like Tesla, for OpenAI, and their ability to just like persevere through that are the ones that win, right? Even when everyone doubts it. So I think that's the lesson there.
I'm gonna go on another tangent just for a second, guys. Bear with me. But another thing that's so great about Endex is that it levels the playing field, right? And like the barriers to entry for analysis become so much lower. You don't need a Harvard educated $250,000 a year analyst to underwrite deals, right? Where majority of their time is actually spent on data entry and not even analysis, pivot tables and extracting PDFs and documents in ways that like it's a joke. They spend majority of their time on data entry. And so I think Endex solves a lot of that. And what it does is creates an environment where I could hire a VA offshore to do a lot of the initial upfront work for me. Now, the mechanical work that's great. And I think Endex solves a lot of that. And what makes it so beautiful is that I could then focus on, as it relates to commercial real estate, the more kind of important human related things like relationships and strategic analysis and judgment. And so it's so beautiful, right? That it could do something like that, where again, you're not really, I guess in a way, you kind of are replacing certain individuals. You're not replacing the analyst, but you're replacing the $250,000 a year Harvard educated analyst. And so that's so beautiful. But what I want to know, Tarun, okay, is with real estate, everyone is so interested in underwriting more deals, right? In the same amount of time that it takes to underwrite one deal, I want Endex to be able to underwrite 10 deals or help us underwrite 10 deals. And thanks to Kayla, who showed me that there was a way to use different chats within Endex. It was like so eye-opening and crazy. And I've been battle testing it with a bunch of different use cases. Okay. But again, to the point about not abandoning our models, okay? Some of these models are robust, institutional, crazy models. At what point in time can Endex underwrite multiple deals at once utilizing our sophisticated, incredibly robust models and do it very well, if at all?
It's a really good question. One of the biggest privileges of working with OpenAI and other leading labs in the space is that we work with them on frontier checkpoints of these models before they get released, right? So we effectively, when a model like GPT-5 comes out, there's like 20 versions of it before it comes out that are each kind of better at different things. And we get a peek into where the world is going of what is around the corner. I believe in the next 18 months, that Endex will be able to fill in complex multi-worksheet templates, right? And the level of precision will match one of someone that you might hire from Harvard that you have to pay $250,000. I truly believe that will happen in the next 18 months. There's specific technical pieces that will take us there, and happy to chat about those. But I think the future is
don't get too technical. No, but I've tried, like I have used my model, which it's multi-sheet, but it's not anything too crazy. I've used my model. I've plugged in Endex. I've taken a PDF of an offering memorandum that my boy Taylor Avakian, shout out the group, CRE, absolutely crushes it, sent to me. I put it in the chat and I gave Endex a prompt to underwrite this deal for me. And it did a hell of a job with all of the inputs in the model. Now, was it 100% perfect? No, right? But like, that was great. So to your point about 18 months, I guess I want to hone in a little bit on that because it already did a really good job with my model. So are you saying like institutional level, like 15 sheet page type models, or what am I missing?
Definitely, right? That's exactly where I see it. Like, I think the level of precision accuracy will increase significantly every 7 months, right? And that's kind of the clip for the LMs getting better, the underlying chips and infrastructure, and the overall accuracy of coding. And I think coding is a great example, right? Every single day I code. Last year, AI would be able to do an autocomplete of the line or maybe a few lines of code. Today, 95% of my code is written by AI at the level of a senior engineer. And we think the same will happen with Excel in that time frame.
Tarun, what are the things that people who are not on the inside like yourself, right? You're seeing the frontiers, you're seeing stuff happens before it is. Like, what is actually happening? Are we close to AGI? Are we getting to a place that, like, is it better? Is it worse? Are we farther away than we think? Like, what's actually happening behind the scenes?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I would want to separate like the physical hardware world from the kind of software world of anything that happened to computer or screen. So within the next 24 months, I think we're going to reach human level at being able to control a computer, like being able to browse the internet, be able to send an email, schedule a meeting. That will happen in the next 24 months, right? And the way that it works in these labs is they effectively have these things called reinforcement learning environments, which are like gyms, where an AI gets to practice, right? Like human can do like before a big race, they like train for a marathon. It's very similar to how these models do. And then they get a grade, did they get better or worse? On the outside today, you try to ask it to do something like, hey, like book me a flight to XYZ place and find this information, and it fails. But I think the thing that's hard for people to understand is that it's getting better each step and getting closer to a percentage chance of success. And the amount of resources of human data being spent to train these models is increasing at an insane clip. People are so easy to kind of judge, oh, it didn't answer the single question for me versus how much closer it's getting at doing longer tasks. I think the hardware world is longer away than I think people realize. Like there's been a lot of viral robotics demos. I think that'll take another 5, 10, 20 years before those things hit the real world. But anything digital, the timeframes are way more compressed than people think. And the ability to kind of take that AI is not 100% today, and it's at 90%, the types of people who embrace that will be able to pay dividends as these systems get a lot better.
Tarun, when do you think I'm going to be able to have a Jarvis on my phone where I'm like I'm driving the road, I see an apartment building, I'm like, hey, let's underwrite, 123 Main Street, pull up all the public data information that we have, go look at comps, go do this, shoot me back a price point that we have based upon the rent comps, either personally in my RAG system or in my database that I can use and do it, or public data. Like, how far away are we from having a legit Jarvis?
It's a great question. If it was Apple only or take it, I don't think it'd ever happen.
Wow. Shots.
But I love those guys, but it's just not gonna happen.
Yeah.
But do I think with all the resources of how competitive the AI landscape is, I think you can get there in 30 months, if not less. And each of the pieces is getting solved, right? Like voice, multimodality of being able to understand external systems, being able to tool call, remember your preferences. All the pieces are there, right? I think the complexity of the tasks will continuously improve for the next 10, 40, 80 years. That will continuously kind of get to closer and closer precisions of accuracy. We'll never be at a place where it's a complete parity at everything in the next 30 months. But I think a version that does exactly what you're doing on a reliable pass, if not shorter than that.
That's such an insane scenario, Taylor. Like, imagine I'm a buyer and I'm pulling up for an inspection at a building, and I just on my phone, walking through, talking and to Endex about this deal, right? Like, oh, the walls, need to be painted, add 5K budget, or the roof needs to be replaced. And you're doing this inspection and just talking to a platform like Endex, and it's just underwriting this deal for you sort of in real time. And then like in some way or another, what about like images? Wow. What about images, Tarun? Like at what point, I don't know even where that question's going, but like as I'm like this buyer, like doing this inspection, like I'm talking to it, we're underwriting this deal, but then like what if, because if I were like to add an image in ChatGPT or even Claude or some of these other LLMs, like it does a pretty kick-ass job of like understanding what's there, and like it's an outdated kitchen, you might need to spend $10 to remodel it and upgrade. So like this is a cool scenario. At what point with Endex could we like throw some images in there while we're doing this inspection and just adding to Taylor's point, like underwriting this deal with all that?
That's a great question. That we're rolling out in the next few months, like being able to pull in images and have them at high fidelity. I think there'll always be edge cases, right? Like it won't be able to like read your mind and there's context that you have, but our goal is for Endex to be more proactive at asking the things it doesn't know. So if you drop that image in, it asks you things like, what region are you in? What's the raw cost for materials, right? And then being able to remember those. So next time you do it, you don't have to ask that question. And so I think that is like the key of when these things go from kind of like helpful assistance to something that truly augments you and remember. And you can start to see that with some of these follow-up queries that they ask where they're like, we're trying to make those like truly intelligent, right? Or it's like, I wouldn't have thought about that. And those are the types of things that we see. And then again, in this next 30 months, what we think Endex will be able to do is you send that image of that countertop, and then it will look 3 days later, it'll be like, oh, by the way, this one liquidator is trying to get rid of a lot of this supply. Do you want me to put in a bid for it? Right. I think it'll start to do those things more proactively, and that switch is going to be massive. Think about everything that you do as a real estate professional that is so reactive to the information and people that you have today. If you had this information surfaced to you when you had a full picture how to make a decision, I think it'll be a game changer.
Real quick, Jake, I got
Okay, I have the craziest out there. So make it real quick. I have the craziest scenario. We're gonna throw a stumper at you guys.
Mine's
There you go
better.
first.
Mine's better. What should people be preparing for today so that when things actually happen, like that they can take advantage of it? My personal answer is data, right? I'm thinking about that. Let me get my proprietary data. But from your perspective, if I wanted to be the leader in my space and use Endex when these things happen so quickly, how do I prepare myself to be ahead?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, few things, right? Being able to push the tools at what they're bad at and always retesting those scenarios, right? So for instance, Jake, you're trying to fill in this complex template. The differences between the people that I've seen get the most out of AI versus those who don't are the people who get frustrated that it didn't get it right versus revisiting that every 2 months until it does. And we've seen that in engineering, right? Like I have friends who are fantastic programmers, but when I ask them, do you use AI to code? They're like, I tried it like 8 months ago. It kind of sucked. And that's just a skill issue, dude. Like you didn't go back and try it. Like these things are improving so quickly that if your mentality is, oh, it messed up once, he'll never be able to do it there, then you'll be upset. And there's definitely a client segment that we deal with that sometimes feels like this will never be at the level of my human and it's not useful to me until it is. And I think that's just the wrong mentality. The way to kind of think about it is like find the workflows that work today, find the workflows that kind of work today that don't. Start to repeat the workflows that you do today and then continuously try those workflows that you don't until they're possible. And what's the worst that would happen? Like Endex is able to save the model. You can save as with it and without it. Just keep trying these things and you're going to get ahead. And I think you guys already are attracting people who are at the frontier in terms of like want to sign up for this course. And I'm sure that there's people who laugh at people who think that AI is going to impact real estate. They're like, no one will be able to do what I want. It's true that I don't think it'll be able to replace people, but I don't think that just because it makes mistakes here and there today, it is tremendously useful. But it's a mentality.
I'm going to fuck up those agents who don't use AI. That's all I know.
Well said. Well, look, we're almost on time here, but I'm going to speak on behalf of the whole commercial real estate industry, okay? Please, when I get an email with a deal from Taylor, shout out the group CRE one more time, I want to be able to forward that email to Endex and say, underwrite this deal for me, and then bang, right back in my inbox, okay? I want Endex to help me underwrite 10 deals using my model, okay? And again, I'm speaking on behalf of the whole real estate industry here, so when you guys get to it, it'll be great, but we're just going to put a little pressure on you at the moment, okay? I want Endex to do the whole Jarvis thing that Mr. Taylor, aka Tony Stark, just described, also with the pictures. And then integrations with data providers to get really good comps, rent and sales comps, so we don't have to go bouncing through a bunch of different interfaces. Those are the initial things that come to mind. Again, speaking on behalf of the industry here, if all of those things were to happen, we're firing. So, dude, we're so stoked that you joined us today. We're so stoked for you and Endex. At the top of my list as far as my favorite tools. Again, just nobody's leaving Excel. Us commercial real estate guys, we live in Excel. And the fact that you just met us in the middle and where we're at, I think it's just such a game changer. So I'm pushing the limits with Endex as it relates to real estate. I know Taylor soon will be. Everyone will be. And we're just so excited to see the progress, man. So thank you for joining us.
No, thanks.
Thank you.
I think it is super energizing to see people get real value from these tools. I think I'm really grateful to have an awesome team. Like a lot more credit goes to them than me, honestly, to building such an insane product and being such amazing customer support folks and really making it the process more ergonomic, right? And we're always hiring and we're always looking to be better product people and help customers. So if there's any times that somebody doesn't feel intuitive or we have a feature request, we're more than happy to help. I like to join every customer Slack channel and I'm always available. We're really excited about this and love partnering with you guys for creating awesome content and let us know how we can be helped.
Yeah. When you're big time, you promise to still hang out and talk to us?
We'll go on your yacht, Tarun. You're gonna fly us
Don't forget about us. Seriously.
a Ibiza or somewhere else.
All right, man. Thanks.
Tarun, thank you.